Thank you, Dave, for that kind welcome. Wow, this is really incredible. It is such a privilege for me to be here today, to be part of this wonderful recognition of a law that so profoundly impacted my life journey. And it's always a pleasure to be here at UConn, founding member of the Big East Conference. Yes, you are. You are. And a school that's done so much to put our conference at the center of the basketball world and the worlds of so many other sports. We're, of course, very proud to have UConn back as a member of the Big East, and very, very grateful for the leadership provided by Dave and President Marek in bringing the kind of life-altering experience that I had to the young women who are here as part of your campus community today. A little bit about my background, because it does, I think, speak to my witnessing of the journey here. Perhaps like many of you, I owe a lot of my journey to my parents. My mother, Barbara, was the youngest child in an immigrant family. My grandparents traveled to the United States in the early 1900s from what was then called Czechoslovakia in search of a better life here in America. My mom was the first in her family to go to college. I inherited her intense work ethic, which was one of many values that she passed along to me and my younger brother, George. My dad, Randy, was my other guiding light. He was an educator, as it turns out, at the high school level by trade, an accomplished athlete, a devoted dad, and a role model for me in many ways. He taught my brother and me how to play basketball and other sports. It didn't matter that I was a girl. When it came to pursuing our dreams, my mom and my dad treated my brother and me exactly the same. In the 70s, my dad became the athletic director at the high school in our town in New Jersey where I grew up. And among other accomplishments, he helped build the fledgling girls' sports programs that were there. He was able to do that for the same reason I was able to earn a scholarship to go to the University of Virginia, the same reason I was able to become a lawyer and ultimately work in the sports business, the same reason we now have the WNBA, women's pro soccer, and other elite sports platforms for women in America, something we're here today to celebrate, a law passed 50 years ago. You know what it was, Title IX. When I was growing up, I competed in swim meets at the community pool in my town, but organized sports opportunities were otherwise very few and far between for a tomboy like me. I don't think that's a word we use much anymore, but that's what they called girls who like to play sports. So I had to make do with pickup games of all kinds. In junior high school, cheerleading was the only sport offered for girls. So I dutifully tried out, but I didn't make the squad. I was totally crushed. I still remember the tryout cheer. Along the way, I was mesmerized by athletes I saw on TV. As you might guess, it was mostly male pro athletes at that time, and the very few women who got airtime back in the day. Women like Billie Jean King, amazing leader. Olympic figure skating, Dorothy Hamill. Do you guys remember the hair? She had the great hair. Gymnasts, Olga Korbut and Nadia Comaneci. They had all of us in our backyards doing like walkovers and backbends. And why was that? Because tennis and ice skating and gymnastics were really the only women's sports you saw on TV 50 years ago. And as we all know, being seen matters, because you have to see it to be it, as we know. I sometimes wonder what would the landscape look like today if girls like me, like many of you in the audience, had been exposed to more women's sports through the power of television. Well, we can never really know what might have happened. We do know what happened, and that was that Title IX was passed in 1972. I was 12 years old, just finishing up 7th grade at the time. As you all know, Title IX is really 37 words. In a larger law, it mandates equal opportunities for males and females in schools and educational programs that receive federal funds, which is basically all schools. To this day, it's the only law that protects gender equality in America. For sports, that meant schools could no longer create teams only for boys. They had to establish teams for girls as well. After Title IX was passed, I went on to play 3 sports in high school. I played field hockey, basketball, and outdoor track. I know that'll resonate with some in the audience. But systemic change doesn't happen overnight. I arrived at UVA in 1977, 5 years after Title IX was passed, and only 7 years after the school began accepting women in the College of Arts and Sciences. Exciting as it was for me to become a Cavalier, it was very hard not to see the inequities within the athletic department at the time. I was one of only 2 partial scholarship players my first year. In those days, the women's basketball team at UVA just had 1 full scholarship for the entire team. And this is how it worked. I got tuition and fees, and a teammate also from New Jersey got room and board. So I got to go to class, and she got to eat. And that was sort of the sharing thing. We had very little by way of amenities, concrete locker room floors, very unsnazzy uniforms, I just made that a word, no pregame meals, no air travel, and only a handful of fans at our games. But that was all pretty standard for women's college sports at the time. And my experience paralleled what we know has been an incredible story of progress in our country. A couple of stats. In '72, before Title IX, only 300,000 women and girls played high school or collegiate sports in the U.S. Today, that number has increased more than tenfold to roughly 3.5 million. Still not enough, but it's progress. The percentage of girls playing high school sports has risen, 3% in '72, 43% now. Still work to do. Women are now 44% of all college athletes, and they're more than 50% of the delegation representing the USA in Olympic competition, which is good news. At the Big East, 12 of the 22 sports we now sponsor are women's sports, representing 2,600 incredible athletes across 104 teams from all 11 of our current Big East schools. Here at UConn, you have your own Title IX heroes, women who've excelled as individuals, excelled as teams, and excelled in showing everything that's possible. Some are household names, like the women who put women's college basketball and later the WNBA on the map. You know who they are: Rebecca Lobo, Nikisha Sales, Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi, Maya Moore, Brianna Stewart, Renee Montgomery. The list goes on and on and on and on, and we'll keep going on and on. There are other super women as well. Lee Curl, who came here on a basketball scholarship in 1985 and went on to become an orthopedic surgeon and the first female team physician in the National Football League. Diane Wright and Nancy Stevens, yay! 2 trailblazers who led teams to multiple championships, fought tirelessly for women's equality in sports. I was thrilled to learn that UConn will be naming 2 campus locations in Diane and Nancy's honor. Congratulations to them. I commend this university. You all grasped early on the value and importance of supporting, celebrating, investing in, and promoting women's sports. And look at the results. Of your 23 national team titles, 16 are in women's sports. 16 of 23. And as you can see on that table over there, Big East crowns for Husky women's teams abound. But here, it goes further than just the participation. What people don't talk about often enough is the effects Title IX has had on women's empowerment in our society. Because of this law, I was able to graduate from a prestigious university debt-free, go on to law school, and enjoy a professional career that's been akin to a dream in many, many ways. I haven't been alone. According to some estimates, 94% of women who now occupy C-suite positions played organized sports in their formative years, 52% at the collegiate level. A friend of mine named Julie Foudy, World Cup star, She has said, sports turn girls into women who lead, and she is absolutely right. It's not an overstatement to say that Title IX has dramatically changed and improved our world. Is there work to do? Absolutely. We need to work on participation. There's still not full parity on the surfaces of play, and that's partly because girls across our country today still don't have equal access to compete. According to data provided by the Women's Sports Foundation, girls' sports participation in urban neighborhoods is half of what it is in rural areas, and in lower income communities it's even less. We need to close those gaps if we're to achieve what Title IX set out to create, equal opportunities for all. If each one of us here today can pledge to open one door for one girl, whether as a coach, through financial support, or even just an encouraging word, we're going to get closer to making that goal a reality. We need to work on representation. If girls aren't playing sports, they're not as likely to become decision makers in the sports world later on in life. And unquestionably, we need more women in sports leadership roles. 3+ decades into my career, I still find myself at times in meetings where I'm the only woman in the room. Don't get me wrong, I love my male colleagues. I love these guys, but you get my point. Women of color are especially underrepresented in the sports management business. And third, we need more people, including men, as allies and advocates of the women's sports cause. My dad was my ally, and an ally to all the girls in my high school before I even knew what allyship was. People like President Merrick and Dave Benedict, and of course Coach Gino Auriemma, are allies. Important allies. And I want to thank them for their unwavering commitment to women's sports here at UConn and for all they do to prepare UConn female student athletes for lifelong success after their playing days are over. I can tell you, I've known Gino for more than 25 years. He represents the absolute gold standard in how to build a successful program, and there are very few people in the sports world that I respect more. My friend Richard Lapchick is a renowned sports activist and the founder of the Institute for Sport and Social Justice at the University of Central Florida. He's a passionate ally. He has said the following, and I'm going to quote Richard. "You don't need to be a person of color to fight racism. You don't need to be gay or lesbian to fight homophobia. You don't need to be Jewish to fight anti-Semitism or Muslim to fight against Islamophobia. You don't need to be poor to fight against poverty, and you don't need to be a woman to fight against sexism. Anybody can do what's right." Amen. Anybody in this room can be an ally. Every single one of you, every single one of us. You can support the Huskies and other women in sports with your time and your wallets. It's as simple to going to games, watching women's sports on television, and providing financial support through corporate or philanthropic dollars. Programs here, like elsewhere, rely on the contributions and support of fans, alums, and former athletes. People like the incredible Dr. Tricia Bailey, who has just made a record-breaking donation to help build a new facility here on campus. Hopefully more women, Dr. Bailey, will follow your incredible example and invest in the teams and the schools that invested in them. I want to name one more ally before I sit down. U.S. Senator Birch Bayh of Indiana, who was one of the authors of Title IX. You need to know his name. He sponsored this legislation in the Senate. Major ally of women's sports. When he introduced Title IX on the Senate floor in 1972, he acknowledged that Title IX was not going to be a panacea or a magic bullet. He called this legislation, and I quote, "an important first step in the effort to provide for the women of America something that is rightfully theirs, an equal chance to attend the schools of their choice, to develop the skills they want, and to apply those skills with the knowledge that they will have a fair chance to secure the jobs of their choice with equal pay for equal work." Close quote. Senator Bayh was right. Title IX wasn't a panacea. It was a path. It was a path. And now it's our job, all of us, to continue to clear the path, to widen it, and to make sure that the girls and the women of tomorrow have a fair chance to travel down it freely as their life journeys unfold. If tonight is any indication, and all the progress we've made over the last 50 years is any indication, then we will achieve our goals, I know. Good luck to everybody, especially the young women in the audience today. Thank you, Dave and Dr. Merrick, for having me here. And now it's my job to direct your attention to the video screen for some exciting moments in UConn women's athletics history. Thank you so much.